today we are joined by the beautiful Christian Colgate, who is a general manager who's, as his own description, quietly been leading one of the more sustained applications for the emotional culture tech that we've seen inside a complex business environment. So whilst a lot of people on this community are facilitators or working external to an organization, Christian's one of these amazing kind of humans who is putting it to work every single day in his business. So over the last 2 years, he's embedded the ECD into leadership, change, performance practices across a large male-dominated manufacturing and construction business. As we had a discussion before, and it hasn't always been easy, but it definitely has been real. So his story is one of persistence, reflection, and using the emotional culture not as a side project, but as a key part of the leadership system. So please welcome Christian to the floor.
Thanks, Kaylee. Really appreciate it. Before I start, everyone can hear me okay? Yep, thumbs up. And everyone can see the presentation on the screen?
Sure can.
Yeah. Awesome, no worries. My first time driving Circle for presentations, so this is my advance apology if you find me fumbling around or looking extremely nervous. Anyway, so welcome. Thanks for joining today. I've had a bit of a tech fail with a second monitor here. So this is a really great example of just having to roll with it, I guess. So you'll apologize if I'm just looking down at some of my speaker notes. So I apologize if that distracts you. So I really want to welcome you to today. I hope you get some value out of it. I'm really excited, grateful, humbled and proud to engage with you today. I'm also feeling a little nervous, anxious. I just cranked up with my tech fail. A little bit intimidated and uncertain. There's a lot of horsepower and some great experience in this community, which I value greatly. Unfortunately, one of the side effects is sometimes you feel a little nervous and anxious about it. So hopefully you'll bear with me. Anyway, I know I'm in the right place at the right time for this, which is the main thing. So I want to take you on a very real and grounded journey that many of you will resonate with, especially if you've ever tried to embed emotion culture in an environment that wasn't asking for it. My story is about starting from a place of cultural resistance, not cultural readiness. Over the past 2 years, the company that I work in, we've built emotional leadership capability in a male-dominated, technically skilled operational business that spans 17 locations across Australia, and roughly about 800 people in my division, and around 1,500 to 2,000 people at any given time in the broader group. A textbook or external mandate that didn't drive this. It started from the top and was shaped by practical need, most definitely. And I'll share what we did while we chose each move that we made, how we aligned emotional culture with business performance, change leadership, and strategic transformation. I had to work out how to advance the slide. Sorry. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, still. I can't see you, just saying. So, little graphic there on the screen just to sort of give you a bit of a view and a bit of a pictorial description of the challenge here. Okay, so the prevailing business landscape. So I'll set the scene. So our business divisionally and operationally, also technically, is very complex. Think about glass, aluminium. Think about windows and doors, the things you look through when you're in your home every day or in your office every day. Fabrication of those products, so very much a traditional manufacturing business, a vertically integrated supply chain in Australia, out of Brisbane predominantly, and then distribution and installation. I'm getting a little bit of mic feedback, so I'm just going to mute, if that's okay, a couple of people. Can I do that, Kaylee? Can we do that? I don't know if we can do that. If you could mute yourself. That would be great. I think, Claire, I'm getting quite a bit of feedback from yourself, if that's cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry. Okay, so leaders were previously promoted based on technical expertise and tenure, not capability. Unclear expectations had led to entitlement and, in some cases, exploitation. The cultural inheritance was one of command and control, low trust, fear-based compliance, and a level of disregard and even resistance to emotion in the workplace. Emerging issues included a generational shift and disconnect, poor retention, absenteeism, management over leadership, and emotional disconnection and suppression at many levels. So quite the challenge. There was no grassroots energy for vision and values, let alone emotional culture. So starting with my GM at the time, and to be clear, I am now the GM, so we had a transition in there as well. A female executive and future family successor, hardened from a decade in this workplace, but hiding a highly intelligent, sensitive, and empathetic mother of three. We formed a powerful duo and deliberately chose to go top down with emotion culture. The issue with emotional contagion at the time presented a challenge with a bottom-up approach that we didn't feel would be able to be successful. So it was the only entry point with enough influence and visibility to create the ripples we needed to influence and build a small cohort of senior managers who might embrace the beginnings of this change, and in doing so, trigger a strategic transformation. I can still recall pulling out the ECD with her and doing a basic check-in, watching her tears as the aha moment unfolded for her. So, culture crafting with the senior team. So we began our senior leadership team, the most influential group in our division. This wasn't a warm and welcoming start, to be clear. Our first ECD culture crafting workshop was awkward, not just for me in facilitating it, but also for the team. There were long silences, resistance, reluctance to engage, and emotional muscle memory wasn't there yet. But what made it powerful was our decision to stay with it. We worked with the ECD to define what we, as a senior team, needed to feel and not feel to be effective and human-centered in our roles. This wasn't just about culture, it was about establishing and redefining our leadership presence. That clarity created psychological permission for every layer beneath. Modeling vulnerability, reflection, and accountability with intention towards our emotion culture was the first ripple of emotional contagion. Three months later, roughly, we extended the work to our branch managers, the direct reports of the senior team, and the first touch at the coalface of our business. So here we flipped the perspective to provide a level of safety. And instead of focusing on how we feel, we explored what our people needed to feel and not feel to be successful in our work. So an application there of the ECD leadership framework. This helped our branch managers and leaders, excuse me, see their behaviour through the eyes and the lens of their team. Servant-based leadership was awakened. It changed the conversation from directing tasks to shaping the emotional climate and the behaviours that might bring our people towards our values, or what we believed at the time would be our values, given that that was also underway, so that we might achieve outcomes and provide better autonomy. They started connecting disengagement, absenteeism, and even safety incidents to feelings like overwhelm, disconnection, and uncertainty. That's when the emotional culture work started to shift behaviours and not just the mindsets. At the time, we implemented a new values program, and think traditional corporate hygiene values here, much to my frustration at the time, using our defined emotional climate as the Trojan horse to shape and direct behaviours towards our values in action and onwards towards a better culture. About 12 months after that, we ran a third session focusing on leading change. Given the experiences of the senior leaders and managers, the branch leaders and managers, we felt it necessary, as initially this work and this vacuum that we had started to fill of leadership presented for them significant challenges just in terms of their workload and in terms of what we're expecting them to do with their people as they work to transform the individual cultures and subcultures within their business. We focused this session on leading change, and we did these at our annual conferences that we held. And this time, integrating the ECD with our formal change methodology, which a lot of you would know, which was the ADKAR framework, part of the ProSci change program. We used the white undesired feeling cards to name what was getting in the way of change, such as fear, confusion, uncertainty. And we used the black cards to articulate what people needed to feel to move forward, which was involved, supported, connected, and encouraged, to name a few. This helped leaders take personal ownership of creating the emotional conditions for change. It aligned perfectly with the awareness, desire, and knowledge stages of ADKAR, which you can see on the screen there if you're not familiar. So this is where emotional culture and change leadership fully converged for us, not as competing tools, but more as integrated systems of human behavior. This was the best I could do on this slide to convey our approach. So it probably reads a little bit different. I think normally you might expect the group and divisions to be at the top, but given it was top down, it was probably the best I could do to try and pictorially represent it for you. So 2 days ago, which is why I'm still a little bit dusty, we rolled out the leadership workshops across the entire group. And I'll go on to some examples in our Miro to share with you at the end of the presentation. So 100 leaders, every divisional leader and their senior team participated, crafting the feelings required for our team's success, understanding how we might know that's occurring, and agreeing on what we need to watch out for to ensure we don't derail our intentions. So very much a traditional workshop to work through the leadership canvas using the leadership framework and the ECD. We will facilitate 5 further workshops to ensure this work becomes further woven into the fabric of how we lead, defining our specific divisional actions and routines and how we will deepen their meaning to create rituals, not just a set of conversations. So if you're familiar with the leadership canvas, and I will throw it up at the end of this session as well. We went through our desired and undesired feelings. We carved up the workshop a little bit to allow us to work through the empathy and the undesired behaviours, right, as a group of divisions and divisional leaders, with 5 future workshops structured to allow us to individualise the leadership canvases to those divisions and their specific operating and cultural conditions. Alongside this, we've embedded emotional culture into induction and onboarding, safety conversations, toolbox talks, leadership discussions. We're in the middle of a lean implementation with emotion culture and the change framework integrated throughout. And even our campaign around improving attendance and absenteeism called show up for your mates. In my view, this is what systematic culture change looks like. It's emotional language showing up in everyday practices, not just special workshops. We're building emotion culture into the system, not just our story. We expected resistance, and we saw it, definitely. Some leaders joked their way through the early moments, avoided eye contact, or stayed silent. But we didn't push for disclosure. We created safety and trusted that readiness would vary, which was extremely difficult if you're a perfectionist like me that battles with that every day and you just want everyone to get on board. The breakthrough came when one leader said they felt alienated and disconnected from their team. That moment unlocked the room. Suddenly, it seemed like it became okay to be real. From that point, we saw language, behavior, and mindsets start to change. Leaders began reflecting and regulating before reacting. They became more intentional about how they showed up and influenced their team's emotional tone more. So now to the question that always comes, does this work make a difference to business performance? Well, the answer for us is yes. We've seen lower turnover in branches where the ECD is embedded. We've seen higher engagement in teams where leaders talk about emotion. Our safety reporting improved where emotional culture and climate was better integrated into pre-starts and toolbox talks. We now treat emotional culture as a strategic performance lever. We measure it through retention, engagement, 360 survey feedback, and leadership capability assessments. Most importantly, we've shifted our leadership system. So how we define, develop, and measure leadership has now changed. So if I think about what I've learned and what I'd say to you, this work's changed me as much as it changed our organisation. So I think it's important to be open and honest about that. I've learned that emotional culture isn't a bolt-on, all right? It's the base layer holding up everything else. Performance, safety, trust, and change. And it does that by way of allowing us to shape behaviours and be intentional about that. So my advice, if I could humbly provide it to you, is to start where you have influence. Never oversell it. You've just got to show it. And sometimes that can be challenging. Finding and understanding the right place to do that or the right person to do that with. We must let the ECD do the work it's designed to do. And I know that message is always conveyed through all of the training and most of the workshops and series like this one I'm giving you now. But it is entirely true. The deck in itself is a wonderful tool. It's a great circuit breaker. It disconnects perhaps the thinking part of the brain and allows, the feeling part of the brain to take over. I think it's important to remember this is an infinite game. Thank you, Simon Sinek, for that one. Culture shifts through consistency, not charisma. If you model it and you live it, your leaders will definitely follow. I like to say culture is lived, not laminated. Putting values up on the wall, breaking those values down into what it looks like into action is extremely important. For those of you who understand the intersection of the ECD and values, there's some really great potential in that. And certainly I've done some work with that. We don't always have the opportunity in organisations, though, to steer values away from hygiene type values such as integrity, safety, our people, etc. So I think it's really, really important then to understand that the use of the ECD is not limited, but can certainly be utilised to understand and design with intent the behaviours required to allow people to live into those values, and then what those actions might look like for employees and leaders when we break those behaviours down into tangible actions and rituals and routines. I'm keen to sort of open the space up. I'd love to understand what you're curious about around what I've delivered. What tensions are you navigating in your own ECG journeys, or have you seen from your clients? Feel free to ask about challenges, integration, sustainability, or anything you've heard that resonates today. Happy for you to provoke as well. Really grabbed this thing. I battled with it, tussled with it. Really, really confronting. And look, I have to acknowledge, extremely confronting as a female as well, in a male-dominated environment. So I think it's important to just call that out and appreciate that. I literally just took the picture cards off the top of that deck and got the black and white cards, sat down with my GM at the time, and really just sat across her desk with her, beside her, and we did a check-in. And, absolutely, it's a bit of an all or nothing move. I mean, courage and bravery and stepping in first is a critical part of this work. So the courage and bravery aspects of it were significant. But, I'm a big fan of, the greatest challenges come to the best people. You've got to tell yourself that. And, just really step into that. So what I did is I literally just did a really basic check-in. All right. So, how have you felt the last few days? How's your week been? Let's go through it. Because what I learned in advance of that, just in discussion, was that the literacy wasn't there in terms of, not only for myself, but also for the team, in terms of people were unable to go beyond, how are you? I'm okay. Right. I think it is such a prevalent aspect of understanding emotion and in feelings that many of us are not well versed in labeling of emotions and understanding that. And then there's understanding, am I labeling the right emotion here? Right. And so, as you advance through the use of this, and what I've seen in the leaders that we've done that with, that literacy builds and they start to regulate a lot more before they're picking the feeling. So an external or internal event is occurring to them, and you can see the pauses, right? You can see the regulation practice starting to display in them, some more than others. Everyone moves at their own pace with it. So I just did the check-in. And I think, certainly as a male and a leader, manager, your first go-to is, I need to fix it. So I worked really hard to stay away from that and just hold space for that, all right, and allow that to come out. And sometimes that meant having a do-over, coming back to it, subject to the level of comfort in the individual. So I was really fortunate with my GM at the time, Sarah. I was an area manager with a cohort of branches. I was very fortunate that she was at least open and curious. So that was really where I started. It's like, hey, look at this cool thing I've got. Yeah, I've been doing this course. It's been amazing. And let's have a crack at it, right? And I'd build a level of relationship with her and safety with her where I was able to do that. Was I aware of her influence in the organisation? Absolutely. All right. Was there strategic intent? Absolutely. On my behalf. Was it grounded in absolute authenticity and genuine care and consideration and desire for a better organisation and a more human-centred organisation? Absolutely. Right. I think that's really, really important. I don't think you can do this work if you don't really care deeply. Yeah, you've got to, the story you tell yourself in your head when you're doing this stuff is probably the one you've really got to be careful of. And certainly that was my learning, right? Is that, riddled with doubt. So you think about some of those feelings that come up, right? And look, even in the last 2 days, hopefully you've still got me. Even in the last 2 days at the conference and the workshop I just ran over that 2-day period, we use Menti quite significantly. That's a separate speaker series by Catherine Riddick. If you haven't seen it, you got to do it. It's amazing. Fantastic way to facilitate large groups through a process. Great with the AI if you've got that access to the Menti. It's just about consistency, reverting to it, finding ways. And it wasn't all just a linear path, Heather, either. All right. It was a lot of probing with it, seeing where there was, perhaps not as much resistance, more adoption, more curiosity. And then, was on my mind throughout the last 2 years, all the time, and really, runs to the heart of scaling inside organizations. I have to just, give my appreciation and thanks to Jeremy Dean. Not only for the whole reason I'm here presenting to you, but just, the most amazing community. But what I mean by that is just the way that he has continued to design and iterate and evolve and improve, this work and what we're doing, and look for ways to do this. And there's just so much awesome nuanced strategy underneath what he has done with it that I just really love, because my strengths are I'm an arranger, achiever, strategic communicator, learner. So with all the weaknesses that go with it, including just being way overly verbose, so I apologize to everybody on this call. But Kirsty, we've been able to build that capability more broadly. I only presented to the board on this, hence that slide I showed. I only presented to the board on this about a month ago. So we've been doing this work almost underground in the division for 18 months, right? And so it was demonstrating that result. My senior team have been fantastic in almost, in almost becoming practitioners themselves without being certified or qualified, just by way of association with me and taking it forward. And to answer your question more directly, what was really cool was to go through our regular performance development process and have some of my team members come forward requesting further development, specifically around emotional leadership and emotional culture, which of course then segues me into the recent changes and shifts in with Riders and Elephants and the ECD and the emotional leadership, stakeholder culture and change courses that are now available. Now, I'm qualified to do a couple of them, still working my way through that. They're really cool. I love them. We're going to do it. And funnily enough, yesterday I had a number of very senior, let's say GMs and people in development team come to me and ask, hey, how do we certify in this? How can we now continue to maintain that critical mass and momentum? So I would say we're there in terms of got some unqualified practitioners who we will now probably shift towards certifying, probably initially in the leadership side of things, framework side of things, and then we'll probably flesh out from there. Have done some stakeholder workshops as well with internal departments, just around understanding their internal customer. And that's been really successful as well. And I can probably demonstrate one of them. So hopefully that answers for you, mate. We just felt the timing was right with this group conference. So we just did the same thing. We just added a special item onto the senior leadership, the board meeting, and we just did a check-in. And two things really came out of it. They were amazing at it. I mean, Jeremy had a quite there. People want to talk about this, they just don't know how. Absolutely, they were fantastic at it. Did really well with the check-in. But you could see just straight after it, when we started to move on to other things, you could almost see the aha moments, like settling on them. Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's different at different levels. So down at the branch manager level, and there's a change coming. We've kept it light, use of the tools, but they do weekly retros and intention setting, right? So what I would call a traditional stand-up. So they do that with their senior team, so leading hands and their senior team underneath them that contain their direct reports. In a given location, there's anywhere from 25 to 70 employees. So, we always have to be respectful about that's where the work's got to be done. That's where we have the most impact and gain the most scale. And so I'd say the stand up and the use of it in the stand up. So and what we've encouraged them to do is just do the check-ins, right? In our performance and development reviews, we actually do the more formal check-in. All right, current state, desired state. All right, what's the intensity level there? What do I think the gaps are from? How can I reframe moving forward and set my intention? And I have tried to communicate reframing as a regulation technique in the business, right? It's that little space in between, the external or internal stimulus, the feeling I choose, all right? So ownership for feelings has been important, not you made me feel, all right? I chose to feel this way based upon something you may have done. And building that language and literacy, I think, along with vulnerability. So we've got plenty of it built into lots of little routines. Now the branch managers are about to move to this next financial year to more formal monthly check-in around desired, undesired emotions, and also quarterly reflection in a more formal way, which I'll demonstrate on the Miro board. So what we've got is we've got this approach, Trish, of just start small and then be ready to build further, right? And because as that capability and literacy improves, those psychological barriers for them using these tools are diminishing and decreasing, right? Because there's levels of confidence and we're building that emotional capability like any other skill in the business, right? It's a human skill. Yeah. Seeing them come out of that, unlocking and unleashing their potential, seeing them flourish from that and open right up and step into vulnerability and those sorts of things has just been the most rewarding thing that I'll take with me.